Hi, my name is Sarah Tabai, and today, along with David Drulinger, we are going to talk about evolving information literacy, critical skills for an AI future. This is part one out of two parts. The second part will be presented on June 24th, so stay tuned. So, what's on the agenda today? First, we will talk about the interconnection between information literacy and AI literacy. Then we'll talk about how information literacy instruction supports the development of AI literacy skills. And we will then continue with giving you practical strategies for integrating information literacy to enhance students' AI literacy. So let's talk briefly about information literacy, which is basically alive and evolving with technology. The focus of information literacy has expanded from literacy in the printed word to the literacy for the online world. It actually has expanded so much that it encompasses digital literacy, media literacy, and algorithmic literacy. And all this just reflects that there is a broader range of skills needed to engage critically with information online and increasingly in an AI driven environment. So, a simple definition of information literacy, according to the American Library Association, ALA, is that information literacy is a set of abilities to recognize when information is needed and then have the ability to locate, evaluate, and use effectively the needed information. By bringing in this very simple and broad definition of information literacy, I want to draw your attention to the fact that information literacy is more than a set of skills that are meant for college students for writing their papers. We need those skills for life. For example, for understanding the need to seek multiple perspectives when analyzing a media message or news report, for our civic duties, for finding accurate and trustworthy health related information, for product purchases, and even in our everyday life at our jobs, in our professional life. We use information literacy skills even if we sometimes are not aware of them. But as the information landscape changes, so do we need to learn and adapt to new challenges. Now, for the sake of time and simplicity today, I will focus only on evaluating of information as an important information literacy skill, a skill that is definitely needed for being AI literate as well. Information literacy teaches students to evaluate information based on a series of criteria such as authority, accuracy, currency, relevancy, and reliability. These are key information literacy concepts for evaluating information, but I'm sure you can see how exactly these same skills can be applied and should be applied to help students build critical thinking skills and prepare them to evaluate and question AI outputs. Besides the key criteria of evaluating information that I mentioned in the previous slide that we can apply to evaluate AI output, I would also like to stress the importance of our students to get to know about the different types of information sources, and in this way highlight the variety of their reliability, accuracy, quality, and their purpose. So in the list that I put together, I started with the most reliable type of information, which in my opinion, mostly is scholarly and peer-reviewed articles. And then I go down the list to the least reliable. Of course, this is a fairly general list, and also it can be subjective and it depends on our discipline. But I think it's a good thing to discuss with our students and engage them in conversations about source types, because I'm not sure that all our students know about different kinds of sources that exist. So it's here that I want to actually conclude that and get my point across that information literacy is a foundational skill. And based on those foundational skills, we can build stronger AI literacy skills for our students. So source evaluation, which I talked today about, is obviously a very core AI literacy skill too. And once our students now, for example, understand the value and distinction among various source types, they are obviously better equipped to critically assess AI generated content. They will question the origin of information. They evaluate the accuracy of information because they know there are other sources out there that they can compare against the output. And they judge the relevancy and currency of information. This knowledge, once they have this knowledge, it not only highlights the AI strengths, it also highlights the limitations of AI as an information source. So on this slide, I put together the feedback from a few of our students on what they want to learn more about, which obviously related to our topic today. And as you can see, they want to know how to find peer-reviewed articles effectively. They know that not all Google results are reliable for academic research. They're looking for reliable and scholarly resources, and they want to know how they can find it and distinguish between them. And they know that we have different databases, which is great, gives me hope. And again, the last two, how to choose relevant sources. And the most important to me is how to confirm that the resources provided by AI are reliable. And we are getting more and more questions like this. So students know that not all the information that is provided by AI is reliable, and that there must be a way that they can confirm their findings. And that's great. So if you want to teach your students how to confirm the reliability of the resources provided by AI, for example, one simple exercise would be the lateral reading exercise, which is a pretty popular information literacy exercise for teaching students to evaluate information in general. So lateral reading basically teaches students to check other sources to see what they say about a certain publication, about its author, about a particular claim, or in our case, what it says about an AI output. Since we emphasize in our classes that what a source says about itself may not be trustworthy, and we also teach students that AI output may not be completely accurate. Exactly the same thing may not be trustworthy. So in this is an example of what I mean when I say we can create a dual learning opportunity and build AI skills while teaching core information literacy skills. And we if you look at the slide here, we talk about, we ask students to generate a short argument on the topic of study. Say, for example, make a short argument for why seasonal allergies impact productivity. And then you can ask the students to use two class texts or authoritative resources and evaluate the AI output against it. So in this way, students learn to evaluate information using credible sources. Plus, they learn that ChatGPT is a tool and not necessarily an objective source of truth. And they learn the value of academic resources. In addition to the cross-checking information exercise with lateral reading from the previous slide, another information literacy exercise for which we teach our students to assess information is the 5 Ws. So the 5 Ws is a popular method for fact-checking. A lot of you know about it. And I think it's a great little exercise to help our students to teach questioning and verifying information. So far, we taught this exercise to students to apply it to human-created information, but this same exercise can be definitely applied to AI-generated content. So let's start with who. Who made this information? Are they even qualified? This becomes even more important with AI-created content. We also have to draw the attention of the students to say that are there any citations now that lead to credible sources? We can talk about author expertise and institutional credibility if we find credible sources. What do they say and how do they justify it? Is the information even relevant and accurate? Can students cross-check the information with other reliable sources? When was the information produced? When was it last updated? We know that AI can produce outdated content and also out of context content. So context matters so much, and we have to make sure that students go and find the original source. Where is the information published? Is it a reputable source? Again, this is something that students have to track, to trace back to the original source and see if they find it reliable and credible. And finally, why? Why is probably one of the most important questions out of all these five W's. We always ask students to think about what's the author's motives, what's the agenda behind creating this information. Is it purely informative? Is it for entertainment? Is it political? Is there an agenda behind this? And this becomes even more important uh, when discussing AI generated content. Critical thinking becomes an important issue here, and I think it's worthwhile to put this exercise into some of your classes if they are relevant. We added an exercise here, but there's plenty of other ideas that we can share with you if you want to use the 5 Ws in your classes.
So now that we've covered AI literacy in the context of the modern world, we wanted to apply that same framework to AI literacy, which we see as kind of the next step in information literacy. And so we use the same general ideas that we applied to information literacy, and we applied them to AI tools. So here we define AI literacy as the practical, critical, and ethical use of AI tools in teaching, learning, and everyday life. And we'll sort of use that idea going forward. So, one of the major parts of AI literacy is critical evaluation. So, it's really important to critically evaluate an AI's output, right? Just the advent of these generative AIs has really introduced a lot of new challenges into not just education, but in terms of consuming information in a variety of contexts, in terms of learning in a variety of contexts. We need to understand better how to be literate in an AI filled world. Generally, these modern generative AI systems, they're gathering a lot of their training data, a lot of the information that they're going to be generating back to you. They gather that from free internet resources. That includes things like blogs, that includes things like Wikipedia, and it's, while Wikipedia may not be the worst thing in the world, uh, this sort of information is going to divert students away from authoritative, resources of the kind that we provide at the library. And a lot of times these authoritative resources are paywalled. So whether or not one of these generative AIs will have access to many of these resources is questionable, right? Maybe they were trained on it, maybe they weren't. Maybe they will generate output that is containing information from these authoritative sources. Maybe they won't, right? So, uh, as a result, this can lead to a lot of inaccuracies. It can lead to biased output from generative AI. It can cause things to be outdated. It can serve harmful or misleading information. This can be a really big factor in the misinformation environment around us. And one thing I think it's really crucial to emphasize to students is that fundamental skills are still necessary in an AI saturated world, right? So even if in the hypothetical scenario where AI researchers somehow find a way to fix all the shortcomings, they get rid of all the AI hallucinations, they get rid of all the biases that AI can generate, all these problems, they fix all those, right? Even in that situation, which is very, dubious whether or not that will actually happen, students will still need information literacy skills in order to contextualize the information around them. So that's not just for AI, that's from their entire surroundings, right? There's many ways in which a perfect AI could generate factual information, and that factual information can still be misleading. It can still be biased, right? We have to make decisions when we are presenting information. We have to make decisions about, how do we present this? How do we think about, the the politics or the kind of choosing sides in a debate or things like this, right? How do you present these things, and how does that color the information that a student is getting from an AI, right? What's more, over reliance on AI, which we can see happening more and more potentially with young people, uh, can really undercut the skill building process, right? So we're seeing more and more cases where students are, rather than learning to write from great writers or from their readings or from their peers even, students are learning to write like AI, right? They're learning to write like an AI and not like themselves. They're losing their voice in many ways, right? And that sort of speaks to the dangers of what we like to call learning debt, right? This idea of learning debt being, kind of letting an AI do the thinking for you, right? And letting an AI do that will lead to atrophied critical thinking skills in general. And another reason why it's really important to emphasize that fundamental skills come first and should come first is that the most effective users of AI are often the most skilled in their field, right? So it's not the skill in using AI that makes you more skilled in the field. It's skill in the field, knowledge about the field. If you're using it for psychology, knowledge of psychology will make you a better user of AI in the future in that field, right? If you're not as skilled in that field, the use of AI can actually decrease productivity. This is because there's a lot of information filtering that comes with greater knowledge, greater skill that you won't develop if you are over relying on an AI, right? So, outsourcing thought, outsourcing thinking, outsourcing skill building to an AI will undercut not only your ability to build those skills, but your ability to use AI productively in the future. So in this way, these large language models, these AI tools can have a corrosive effect on the ability to just think, to just learn, right? So I think it's really important to focus on independent skill building, and to do that while integrating AI tools, right? So, it's important to get those skills built up, and to do it in a context with AI will just make it so that AI is part of that skill building process rather than replacing it. So this is all to say that it's part of our jobs in education to convince students why they need information literacy, why they need these skills, why they need critical thinking, why they need anything actually in education, right? So students, are kind of famous for asking, why would I ever need this, right? Why would I ever need this math or this history or anything like this? What's the usefulness of this, right? So, it's important for you to really kind of isolate and to emphasize and to convince students of the motivation behind skill building in your field, right? Why do your students need these skills, right? Surely they do. What context will they need them in? How will it help them find work? Things like that. Make sure that students understand that they have things to offer future employers that AI can't offer, at least at this point. And in the future, if they are skilled in the field, they will be more likely to be able to use AI to increase their productivity versus someone who is not skilled in the field and who spends all their time, outsourcing their thinking, outsourcing their skill building to AI, right? And so this is all to say that information literacy is part of preparing students for the rest of their lives, right? And like I was saying, a big part of just absorbing information involves filtering bad information from good, right? So that's a really key skill. That's part of evaluating the information around you, not just at school, but in your everyday life, right? And learning to use reliable sources is a key part of pretty much anything we're going to do in a work setting, in a research setting, in an educational setting. So it's important to show them what the reliable resources are, how to apply it to what they're doing. So this brings me to a really key exercise that I think should really serve as a foundation for teaching AI literacy in the classroom, and that is reflection. Doing a reflection exercise um, has a lot of benefits in the classroom. Amongst them are that it drives students to grapple with the class skills, the skills you're actually trying to teach them by teaching the class, and it does that through the context of AI. So, it's not just a separate AI lesson where you learn about AI and then you move on to the actual meat of the course. It's teaching the skills, it's teaching what the course is about, but it's doing it through the context of AI, right? So, in order to teach writing skills, for example, you could reflect on an AI's writing output, right? Uh, that will teach students, writing analysis. It introduces them to the nature of, AI generated writings. It allows them to think, okay, well, how is this different from what a skilled human might write? How is this different from what I might write? So there's a lot that students can learn from a basic writing analysis, as we all know. We do that, when we're learning to write in general. We used to use human written texts. Now we can use AI for that same thing, right? Um, Another thing is that reflection exercises will allow you to give guidance on AI use, right? This is your chance to model how best to use AI. You might have a lot of ideas on how to use AI. You can show them how you might use AI by making a reflection exercise. And I know a lot of people think, well, I'm not an expert in AI. How could I possibly integrate this into my classes? Well, you are an expert in your field, right? You're teaching a course on whatever it is, this subject or the other, right? So you're an expert in that subject, in that field. You can discuss AI within the context of that field, right? So make your field of study kind of your central core of any of these AI reflection exercises. After all, that's what students are here to learn about, right? And finally, reflection exercises teach information literacy and they teach critical thinking, right? These are skills that are really important for all sorts of things like writing, like evaluating arguments, like finding inconsistencies, things they can apply to all sorts of situations in their lives. And so to make this as simple as possible to make an AI reflection exercise, I made this 3-step process that will guide you through how to make your own AI reflection exercise. And so I'm just going to walk through this, and by the end, you'll have a better understanding of how I'm thinking about making a reflection exercise of the type I'm talking about. So the first step would be to choose one of either A, making an AI generated writing for the whole class to use together. So that would mean, you have ChatGPT create some sort of text on a topic of your choosing, something, a class topic. And then, you would put that on a board, up on the projector or something, or share it on Zoom. And, everyone would be able to read it together and discuss it together, right? Or B, you can have students generate their own AI writings either individually or in groups, something like that. But in that case, rather than you making the AI generated text, the students would make the AI generated text, things like that. Step 2 is to make questions that encourage reflection on class topics, on AI, on key skills from your field, and so on, right? And I'll give a few examples of questions along those lines in a second. And the third step is to choose one of these options as kind of the process that the exercise is based around. Either A, an in-class discussion, B, an in-class writing, or C, oral presentations. And so here's a really good example created by Dr. Ishler of a AI reflection exercise. And so, in this exercise, the idea is that you show the following things on the screen, the projector or via Zoom. You show the prompt that Dr. Ishler used to prompt the AI to generate something. So in this case, the prompt is write a brief paragraph answering the following prompt. How did the outcome of the French and Indian War impact the American Revolution? So, we can already see Dr. Ishler is using the class topics of the French and Indian War and the American Revolution for a class about American history, and using that as the topic for the AI generated text, right? So Dr. Ishler got the text back, so here it's shown as the ChatGPT writing, and it says the outcome of the French and Indian War, 1754 to 1763, significantly impacted the American Revolution, and so on and so forth. It goes on for a few paragraphs, but I shortened it here, right? So, but the idea is you would show the whole thing on the projector, on the Zoom meeting with your students, and Dr. Ishler then has questions he asks the students, and they all have a group discussion, right? So his questions are, does the content provide the information requested by the prompt, right? So that's asking, did it actually answer my question, right? And that requires the students to understand the topics and what a plausible answer to the question would be, right? Is the content factually correct? That's in its essence is a fact-checking question, right? So that could involve asking students to use their textbook, use some sort of resources that you've defined to determine, okay, is it stating factual things? What sorts of mistakes has it made? Are there ways you could argue against what it has said here, right? So that gets students interacting with good sources, good materials for the class. And the third question he made is the content good, right? So that's an evaluation question. That's a question about, what is your opinion on how good this writing is? Could you do better as a writer? Could you make a better answer to this question yourself? There's a lot of value in that. That's very much a writing analysis. That's very much an idea analysis that requires a lot of critical thinking. And here I've made a few example questions showing how you might create some reflection questions that will help students to kind of think about and reflect on writing skills, right? So if you were trying to build up students' skills in writing, these are some of the questions you might, think about asking or similar, right? So, the questions include things like, how does the AI output compare to a skilled human's writing? That's similar to the writing analysis I suggested before, just like you can analyze a human's writing and, that could be part of your skill building in terms of improving your own writing. You can compare it to an AI's writing, right? And say, how are these things similar? How are they different? Which one is better? Which one is worse? That sort of thing. Does the AI have a strong opinion, right? What's its thesis, right? These questions are really kind of driving at, you know, how you make arguments, what you're arguing about, right? Many students are confused about what a thesis even is. This kind of question is a good opportunity to teach them what is a thesis. What is a strong opinion? How do you express strong opinions in ways that are measured and evidence backed and things like this, right? Does it present evidence? Is the evidence compelling, right? So, if the AI is compelling in its writing but doesn't present evidence, that's a great opportunity to teach students about evidence. How do you think about sources? How do you think about evidence? How do you present it in a writing, right? Does the AI have authority? Does it have more or less authority than a human expert? That's something that a lot of us may not think about kind of without being prompted. But, the idea that an AI might have authority, um, can in many ways not make sense, right? Does it have authority? It doesn't have a degree from a law school. If you're asking it about a business question, it doesn't have 10 years of experience as a CEO. In what sense could AI have authority, right? And so, comparing it to something like a human expert, it's just getting students to kind of reflect on the fact that, well, maybe AI doesn't have authority. If authority is something that I value, if authority is something that I look for in information that I consume and that I believe, then perhaps it's worth finding human experts, um, you know, people producing peer-reviewed writing, people producing authoritative sources of information and knowledge creation, um, rather than just relying on an AI as if it was an authoritative source, right? Where do you agree or disagree with the AI's argument, right? So that's getting students to think about, how do I evaluate these arguments? What are my own opinions in relation to them, right? And finally, what grade would you give the AI's writing, right? So, I think that's kind of a fun exercise you can do and say, I think this writing's great. I think this writing is lacking in certain ways. That gets students to think about in what ways are it great? What are the qualities that make it good or bad or indifferent, right? What makes writing good, bad, or indifferent in general, right? It's a great way to teach that. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation today. We have a lot more information for you at our faculty guide to AI tools, which we made. You can find that at libguides.torolib.org/faculty guide to AI tools, which is spelled out there. Or you can go to torolib.org, click the LibGuides button, and then you can look in the AI tools category for that guide. Thank you so much.